This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. This morning, I went on Reddit and I saw this post to which Diligent Practice 877 says, "Sinners, please do not stop talking about hypocrite Harry and the African Park scandal." Well, Diligent Practice 877, your wish is my command. But first, I must say this. Please note, especially YouTube, Meghan and Harry, and anyone who represents Meghan and Harry monitoring this channel. This video contains speech protected under the U.S. Constitution. I declare I am exercising my First Amendment under the U.S. Bill of Rights. Any attempt to censor and/or suppress could be in violation of the law. Section 230 may not be applicable if found exercising bad faith regarding biased content moderation. Now, as many of you know, I have to say this, especially when I'm covering topics that the globalists do not want people to hear about, especially when it comes to the truth. I put this list up in front of you because these are 14 American people who have been affected by Meghan and Harry's involvement with the censorship industrial complex behind the scenes. Now, I'm putting this list up as a message for those that are monitoring this account and reporting back to Montecito to know that behind each of these accounts, there are 14 Americans who are protected under the First Amendment rights. So what happened to Proper Wise Guy, aka the motivation specialist, as well as Ibble Dibble recently, we know what's going on. And we're all watching for the outcome of the Supreme Court's decision on the landmark case Missouri versus Biden. Okay, now that I got that out of my system and it's on record, I'd like to move into the main presentation, which is talking about this article that had came up this morning from The Hill. I want to go ahead and read parts of this because I think it's important as it pertains to Africa and Harry's involvement with African parks. For those that don't know, The Hill is not a tabloid, but it is one of the top U.S. political websites that is read by the White House and lawmakers in D.C. It is a main source for policy, politics, and election campaigns. So it's pretty serious. Anyway, onto this article. It begins. It should have been a simple trip to London. Prince Harry arrived on Tuesday to attend a worthy cause. Yesterday, he celebrated the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games at St. Paul's Cathedral, an event Harry co-founded in 2014 to honor wounded soldiers and military veterans that now includes 23 nations. I'm really glad that they set the record straight here by saying that Harry co-founded this instead of making it seem like it was Harry who did this all on his own. The Duke of Sussex's estrangement from his family uncomfortably continues, including from his brother William, the Prince of Wales, and his sister-in-law Catherine, the Princess of Wales. What should have been the start of an inspiring trip that ends later this week in Nigeria has now turned into a dystopian exercise reminiscent of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Meghan's decision to shun King Charles once again is par for the course, essentially declaring herself persona non grata in the United Kingdom. So too, in effect, at least from the public perception standpoint, is Meghan's preventing the king from seeing her children, in effect, weaponizing them against the king. But familial darkness is a small matter compared to carelessly spreading darkness on the global stage. Geopolitical and national security implications are very much in play right now in the Sahel in sub-Saharan Africa. Harry and Meghan's initial decision to accept Nigerian defense minister's invitation to visit Abuja this week was completely above reproach. Nigeria is hopeful of soon hosting a future Invictus Games, and Nigeria is a vital ally in an increasingly destabilized yet strategically important region of Africa. Meghan's machinations, however, have changed all of that. By refusing to travel to London with Harry and by failing to bring her children along with them to see King Charles and Queen Camilla, Meghan intentionally put the media spotlight on herself just in time for it to highlight her trip to Nigeria. Hollywood power games may play to one's advantage in Tinseltown, but in the real world of foreign policy and national security, Harry and Meghan are only naively strengthening the hands of Moscow and Beijing. Up until this point, I agreed with everything that this author said, but here is where I disagree. Meghan and Harry, particularly Meghan, was not naive in planning the trip to go to Jamaica, nor was she naive in planning this trip to Nigeria. For the last 6 years, Meghan has been trying to destabilize the monarchy. And unfortunately, these journalists that are now talking about the political aspect of Meghan and Harry and what they've done are sort of late to the game. They don't understand all the machinations that had been going on because, for the most part, Meghan and Harry had controlled the media here in the United States. We cannot forget Ian Sexton, who was one of the top squatties in the very beginning, who had been championing and advocating for abolishing the monarchy. The rabid fan base that Meghan pays for, or the Sussex PR machine, or the people that are backing Meghan and Harry to carry out these attacks and campaigns online, all do have a political purpose to them. And I hope that people are starting to wake up to see that Meghan and Harry came to the United States, one, to undermine our Constitution, to serve a higher power. Whether it be to China or to Russia is yet to be seen, and I'll get to that in a second. But calling Meghan and Harry being naive and making it sound like Meghan and Harry don't know what they're doing, it gives me the impression that he is naive in understanding the full picture here. And what he doesn't recognize or understand is that these hired bots and these Sussex squatties who are being paid to go ahead and cause havoc have multiple roles. It's not just going after Megxit community, but a lot of them have other accounts in which they're selling discourse, whether it be from a political spectrum. I mean, we saw this in 2020. We didn't know it at the time, but a lot of these squatties had been Antifa, BLM. They're part of these groups that either are funded by Soros or the parasitic elite in order to disrupt the flow of democracy, so-called democracy, because they're pushing the socialism onto us. Perhaps China and Russia are seeing this as an opportunity, but let's not leave out the United States as also seeing this as an opportunity. And domestically, it is being disrupted as a result of, potentially people telling Meghan that she needs to go, not for Hollywood, but for political purposes. I said this from the very beginning. People like Hillary Clinton, Obama, they see the royal family and they envy that. They want that. I've also said that there's a lot of money in the Commonwealth, and Harry himself many times over had said the tremendous amount of opportunity that was lost. He's not talking about helping the people. He's talking about pillaging the lands, which the United States would love to get their hands on, such as like the cobalt mining in Africa. I mean, there's so many minerals there that the United States, China, Russia are all fighting over. So we cannot leave the United States out, especially if that's a territory that they're looking to conquer. Seizing control away from the monarch means seizing control away from UK and trade. This is what it's all about. Anyhow, I digress. Continuing on. Instead of arriving in Abuja as the beloved daughter-in-law of the UK's reigning monarch, who is also the head of the 56-member Commonwealth of Nations, Meghan chose to travel alone to Nigeria and, in effect, to play the role of the aggrieved royal outcast bearing the self-proclaimed scars of modern-day British racism. To be sure, legacy racism persists in the UK as it does in other countries, including the US. However, the UK is not a racist country, nor one defined by racism. Just look at the people British voters put in power. Rishi Sunak, England's Prime Minister, is of Punjabi Indian heritage, the son of Hindu parents who were born in East Africa. Sadiq Khan, the third-term mayor of London, is of Pakistani descent and the son of Sunni Muslims. Until Tuesday, Hamza Yousaf, himself a Muslim, was the first minister of Scotland. All three men are representative of the cosmopolitan England that came into its prime during the reign of the late Queen Elizabeth II, and as a result of her council. That is the messaging that Harry and Meghan should be bringing to Nigeria, one of the UK's commitment to the Commonwealth, especially in Africa, and the relevance of the global south in modern-day England, Scotland, and Wales. Instead, we are witnessing a redux of Empire 2.0. The notion that the Commonwealth is just a modern-day imperialist enterprise, that Harry and Meghan foolishly allowed themselves to first become associated with it in their Netflix series, and their Oprah Winfrey interview, when they raised still unsubstantiated claims of racism in the royal family. I have to disagree here. They were not foolish in what they were doing. Remember, they had all these advisors surrounding them, advising them on the deals that they should take. Meghan and Harry had many resources that came from the Obama administration or had worked with Hillary Clinton. In addition, we also had them aligned with various political action committees that were supporting to affect the election. I firmly believe that what we're seeing is intentional. It's to distract us from taking them seriously and as a threat. So, this naivety that they talk about and it being so self absorbed by Meghan, I think, yes, does have some weight, but also keep in mind, Meghan did not do this by herself. She couldn't pull all of this madness off by herself. Harry and Meghan are not simply popping into a Nigeria detached from the regional realities of sub Saharan Africa. Earlier this month, Russian President Vladimir Putin's military forces began using Airbase 101. Moscow is rapidly building military and economic inroads into the region, including in nearby Chad, Mali, and Burkina Faso, and toppling previously stable democracies throughout the Sahel in the process. One key factor in overthrowing once Western friendly countries is Putin's propaganda wars, aimed at painting the UK and its NATO allies as modern day Western imperialists and unrepentant racists. Putin does this in concert with Chinese President Xi Jinping as part of their coordinated effort to undermine and destroy the Commonwealth in Africa. Harry and Meghan's most virulent fandom, often referred to as the Sussex Squad, fail to understand the tragic extent to which African nationals are being placed in harm's way by Moscow and Beijing. Now, the Western interests are being attacked in the Sahel. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are unwittingly aiding Putin and Xi by continuing to undermine King Charles as head of state and head of the Commonwealth.
Is Harry's behaviour bordering on treachery?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a strong word.
Oh, treacherous are strong, but he is a disloyal, treacherous man, son and brother. He has behaved appallingly. His book, the Oprah Winfrey film, all his conduct, and supporting Meghan in her bid for always this different branding. He has really behaved appallingly towards his family.
No, I don't think they're stupid. I think they're more greedy than anything else. Because if they really were unsuspecting and saw what was going on with African parks and believed the shit that they're talking about, Harry and Meghan, they would also push back onto Harry and Meghan, but they don't. Which leads me to believe that this is all intentional and they're looking the other way because they're getting paid. Like, where's Safiya Noble? Where is Boozy? Where is Sarah Data? Where is Ian Sexton? Where is Scobie talking about the abuses happening in Africa under African parks? Obviously, they're looking the other way because their purpose and reason why they've been hired is to intentionally destabilize. A perfect example of destabilization by these radical leftists are these campus protests funded by George Soros via dark money into these organizations. You see that there are incentives that are paying these students to be on campus to cause disruption. It's the same thing happening here with these squatties. Now, the question is who is behind it and funding it? I mean, the obvious would be definitely money coming from Meghan and Harry, but who's funding Meghan and Harry? And that's the bigger question that should be answered. I mean, we see them aligned with Open Society, Omadar Network, Bill and Melinda Gates. They've been aligned with high political figures. It's what we need to get to the bottom of. I don't think it's so much China and Russia, maybe a part of it, but I think a lot of it is being driven from the United States. Millions of African civilians in the Sahel are now being actively economically exploited by Russia and China. National resources are being stolen, and in hundreds of cases, they are being brutally massacred by Russian paramilitary groups. Ditto in the Central African Republic, Sudan, and across the entire African continent and Nigeria, courtesy of Boko Haram, is high on Putin and Xi's wish list in Africa. Democracy dies in darkness, but also in naivete. Harry and Meghan must ditch their knives out approach to King Charles that was on display in Jamaica and recognize that when they operate on the world stage, their decisions and actions result in very real consequences because of who Harry's father is and the role he plays in global affairs. You see, Meghan knows this, and it's why whenever we see PR puff pieces coming out, they're strategically planned, especially to overshadow not only the efforts of the king, but also on purpose to destroy any chance for William and Catherine in the future. Meghan is a conniving snake. She may look stupid, and everything that we've seen so far come out looks stupid, but I think that's all intentional. Harry, on the other hand, not that bright. And sadly, I think that he is being taken advantage of by not only the people surrounding him and advising him, but also by the US government. He is an asset, in my humble opinion. Unfortunately, Harry and Meghan remain self servingly lost in propagating a dystopian heart of darkness that in reality ostensibly no longer exists. Western imperialism and racism of old are not destroying modern day Africa. Rather, Russian and Chinese military and economic imperialism are subjugating sub Saharan Africa, increasingly through violence and anti democratic oppression. I agree for the most part with this last paragraph. However, I don't think it's just Russia and China that are in it for economic imperialism. It's also Harry as well. Remember, he's involved with African parks, and the people that are involved with African parks that sit on the board, specifically Hans-Jörg Weiss and the geopolitical influence that he has in certain countries. Let's take a look at the influence that he has in the United States. Now, I've read in numerous sources the opinion that this guy is worse than Soros. This concerns me because Prince Harry is aligned with him, particularly on this board with African parks. To understand the corruption and evil doing of these people, listen to Senator Hawley this past week talk to the Secretary of Interior about this billionaire, Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Holland, do you know the group called the Wilderness Society?
I've heard of it, yes.
And what, to your knowledge, what is this group?
It sounds like the name is explanatory.
Well, let me help you a little bit. It's a left-wing environmentalist pressure group. Do you know who funds them?
I do not.
Well, I can help you with that, too. It's funded in large part by a foreign billionaire, Hans-Jörg Weiss, who has routed his money through all manner of dark money groups, including the Arabella Network. Hans-Jörg Weiss was investigated by the FEC for illegal campaign contributions because he's not a United States citizen.
A gentle reminder that Harry and Meghan's Archwell Fugazi Public Charity also is a part of this Arabella Advisors Network. We could argue that Harry is also guilty of illegal campaign contribution. Let's not forget, Archwell Fugazi Public Charity gave money to Political Action Committee Color of Change. If that money that was given to Color of Change originated from the Crown, that could pose a problem in being seen as foreign interference in our election, which I've already talked about, that these two have already had their hands up in it. But I'm just sitting back waiting for the day that Jim Jordan subpoenas Prince Harry to Congress, because I firmly believe that this man needs to sit in front of our representatives to answer questions on how he knew about January 6th, as well as his alignment and involvement with the censorship industrial complex.
He sits on the governing council of this dark money environmentalist group. Has anybody in leadership at your department met with them, the Wilderness Society?
Senator, I do not know this individual, and
Has anybody in leadership at your department met with the Wilderness Society?
Well, I'm sure we've met with a lot of groups and organizations in the work that we do, and we're discussing the environment.
So does that mean you don't know, or you're not going to answer my question?
I don't have a full list of everyone
Okay.
that everyone has met with. But
well, I can help you with that
had a
as
specific question,
well. The answer is yes. Your leadership has met with the Wilderness Society. They met with the Wilderness Society when that group was a plaintiff suing the Department of the Interior with an adverse lawsuit against you, and they met with them off the books. I've got the emails. In July of 2021, after you had come to office, members of the Wilderness Society, when they're suing the department, write to your top deputy and ask for a meeting to keep it off of his calendar. Here it is, July 14th, 2021. Can we set up a meeting with these folks? July 19th, 2021, they propose how they might calibrate this so it doesn't look like they're violating any of the rules of the court. And remarkably, it stays completely off of everybody's calendars. We only know about it because FOIA requests were filed. And then after they have these off-the-books meetings, their request is to cancel the mineral leasing rights in Minnesota in the Superior National Forest. This is a critical minerals mine. The society wants the mine shut down. After they meet off the books with your leadership, you do it. A few months later, you do it. You cancel the leases, and then you withdraw 225,000 acres of critical mining from production and leasing shortly after that. Is it common practice at your department to meet with dark money groups off the books and conceal it from the public?
Senator, thank you for the question. And of course, I can't answer to, if you're referring to our former deputy secretary, he's no longer at the department.
Who worked for you?
He worked for the president. He was appointed by the president.
He's your deputy secretary. Are you the secretary of the Department of Interior? I thought that's why you were here. Are you the secretary? Don't look at her, look at me.
Yes,
Are you the secretary?
I am.
Do these people who are sitting here today answering most of your questions, do they work for you?
They work.
Do they report for you? You're not in charge?
They work with me.
They work with
They
you.
work
So
as
you're
a
not in
team.
charge of the department. Oh my gosh, I thought you were in charge. I thought that's why you were here.
We work as a team.
Oh, okay. So who's in charge then?
I provide the vision. I provide the overall direction and
But you're not in charge.
our mission.
Do you take responsibility for what happens
I
at the
take-
Department of the Interior?
Take responsibility.
Do you take
for
full responsibility for what happens at the Department of the Interior? Good. Then why are your leadership meeting with dark money groups and concealing it from the public? Why are they doing it off the books? How many times has this happened?
Senator, this is the first I'm hearing of this. My deputy secretary is no longer there, and I can't answer to what he did when he was there.
What did they get out of it, do you suppose? What do you suppose Hans-Jörg Weiss got out of you canceling the leases after they asked you to?
I don't know who.
In an off-the-books reading.
I don't know who this individual
Oh,
is.
sure. I mean, you don't know, you're not in charge, you're not responsible. We have a corruption problem in this government, Madam Secretary, and frankly, we have a corruption problem in your department.
We don't.
We've got we certainly do. We have foreign billionaires who are funding dark money groups coming to meet with your leadership, concealing it from the public while they are filing lawsuits adverse to the department. Doing it without the court's knowledge, doing it, you say, without your knowledge, and then getting exactly what they want. Now, I don't know how much money he made off of it. I'm sure it was a lot. I know how he made his money. He made his money by poisoning people. Hans-Jörg Weiss, here's what his company did. In 2009, Synthes USA, with Weiss at its head, was charged by Philadelphia's U.S. attorney with running an illegal clinical trial on humans. They injected them with a cement that turns to bone inside the human skeleton.
Yes, you heard that correctly. Hans-Jörg Weiss's company, Synthesis, was running illegal clinical trials on humans, injecting them with a cement that turns to bone inside the human skeleton. The FDA told the company, Synthesis, not to use the cement during spine surgeries, but the company ignored the warning and people died as a result. Oopsie! Just so you know, 4 of the Synthesis top executives were ultimately sentenced to prison. But one has to wonder if this billionaire privilege saved Weiss from sharing any of the blame. He wasn't charged by prosecutors, but he's been accused of purposely ignoring clinical trials and of being a hands-on, forceful 800-pound gorilla who allowed little dissent in the ranks. I suspect the reason why we don't hear Harry speaking out about the abuses of the Baka people is because of the power that this man, Hans-Jörg Weiss, has and the amount of money that he has put into this organization to not only control the lands, but also for this green colonialism. Now, I've talked about this in a prior video, stating that this is for money under the guise of conservation. There is no intention of helping the Baka people. The reason why all these abuses are happening is for the goal of forcing them off the land. This is about controlling that land and owning those resources and minerals that are on that land. Why do you think the United States is given so much money into this so-called conservation? At the end of the day, what we're going to do is most likely turn around and sell it to China. This is why there's such a race to conquer these areas, but they want to look like as if they are white colonialists. Now they're green colonialists. You know what I mean? The insane thing about it, though, is the influence that these billionaires have on the politicians to give money towards this so-called conservation effort. So at the end of the day, who is really kicking these people off the land? It's the United States taxpayer or another government that's participating in this sham. This is why we have these billionaires who are funding dark money into these various organizations that support the left, because for the most part, what we're seeing here is corruption to the highest order.
That's the guy who's funding this group, who's pressuring your department, and you're meeting with them off the books and giving them exactly what they want.
I did not meet with him. You're implying that I met with him.
I'm just trying to figure out who's in charge of the Interior Department. You've said it isn't you. It sounds to me like it's the billionaires. It sounds to me like it's the dark money billionaires who are calling the shots at the Department of the Interior. And all I have to say to you, Madam Secretary, is that is a travesty. It is a travesty. The American people should be in charge, not the foreign billionaires. And the fact that you've let them run rampant is outrageous. It's outrageous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Because not many people have asked if I'm okay.
You've been hit by a smooth criminal.
Yes.
You're such a fraud.